So I want to say that even though Margie's not here, she was here because she helped us with this. And a lot of her examples are in here.
She is here in spirit.
Yes.
All right, folks. Thank you for those of you who have already completed the poll. Those of you who are still thinking about your answers, let me vamp for a moment, but also show you our schedule here today. After this poll, we're going to do a very, very brief literature review. This was originally a longer thing. Susan and Margie gave me the good feedback that this should be cut down to a few bullet points. So we've done that. We'll give you access to the longer literature review if you're curious to see it. At that point, you start to get a sense of where we're going with this, but we'll spend the bulk of our time talking about effective integration of AI. We'll try to share some things that you can really start doing right away in class. But of course, we'll address the concerns that we have and that many others have as well. But we want to set aside a good amount of time for you to really get some hands-on experimentation where you can try out the tools that interest you most in breakout rooms with support from colleagues. How are we doing with poll results here?
We're looking pretty good. We got 50 out of 55, so we could end it.
Let's end it and share the results. That'll be great.
Yeah. I wish we could get those numbers, participation
there we
in
go.
general elections here. Okay, take a look, folks. Susan, you wanna
Yeah.
comment on what you see here?
Instructors are on average more concerned about AI's perils and its possibilities. 84% say yes. AI is causing students to cheat more. 77% says yes. AI produces better written output than students. Now there we're almost 50-50. It's easy to distinguish whether a written passage is human or AI generated. Again, we're pretty close to 50-50. Yes is 58 and no is 42. AI emergence has created more work for instructors. And again, we're pretty 50-50, but more on the yes side. And instructors' biggest concern about AI is that it will take their jobs one day. And 67% said no. So that's good. 33% said yes. Okay, so we're going to address all these issues, and maybe at the end of our presentation, you can think about whether you've changed any of your thoughts.
Absolutely. I would also like to take this moment to share the presentation file that we'll be displaying on screen with you all. It's slowly uploading its way into chat here. As Cheryl notes, some of us haven't used AI yet. Well, you'll get a chance to today. One thing we will ask you to do in breakout rooms, if you've never experimented with any of these platforms, it's to start. You might be surprised by what you find. All right, folks, if you look in chat, you should see this presentation document. That will help you follow along at home if you like. But also you'll be able to access some of the links and resources that we're sharing with you here. All right, let me close out that chat screen for the moment here and continue here. All right, well, here's a real quick follow-up on our poll, folks, with some literature review takeaways. You can see the expanded literature review through this link, but as we see in our poll, instructors are increasingly concerned about student use of AI. In particular, they're distrustful that student work is original. And this is really across levels, higher education, elementary, and of course in our context as well as we've seen. And instructors are dealing with these fears by turning to AI detectors. In other words, they're trying to use AI to fight AI. The problem, there's pretty extensive research showing that these detectors don't work. And then if you've experimented with these things yourself, well, Susan, anything you've noticed from trying out these detectors?
So yeah, so the first semester that I taught when AI was around, I started putting in my students' essays into three different chat AI detectors. One of them was Turnitin, one of them was Chat Zero. I mean, there was 3 different ones that I did. And I got different results. In one case, it said the students used AI 100%. Another one said it was all human written. And a third one said it was a combination of both. So they all gave me completely unreliable results.
And in the worst cases, sometimes those unreliable results are false positives. In other words, students are getting flagged for AI use when they did not use it, which can be very damaging for students. And because of issues like that, a lot of these detectors, they just sort of tend to err on the side of caution and say, well, we think it's human. It's like 58% human written, or we're not sure. But all this feeds back into instructors' distrust, right? Because they don't know what they're seeing. But if you ask students about this, most of them, about 60%, say that they're not using AI for schoolwork. Those who do use it tend to see it as a starter tool, but they feel it's inappropriate to use it to create assignments. Of course, that's not all of them. Some students, feel otherwise and are using it. But this is what's key. Self-reported measure, like self-reported cheating, where students admit to cheating in surveys, is at the same rate as it was before AI. And there's other data that kind of confirms this too. We just finished our portfolio assessments for the first-year writing students in this spring semester, and the percentage of portfolios flagged for suspected AI use was consistent with those flagged for plagiarism in previous semesters. In other words, yeah, some students are using AI to cheat, but it's just kind of the cheaters are just using different methods than they used to. All right. Well, what do we, if this is given this sort of backdrop, what do we do? Well, we've got a video for you here. Susan, what do you think? Should we
Let me just give a little background on the context. So I teach in Afghanistan, and of course, my students have to be remote because we're not allowed to go to Afghanistan. So I really needed to address the use of AI because it's so easy to cheat when you don't have your students in front of you. And so I did a little activity, and if you can scroll just a little bit so they can see the essays. So I gave my students 2 essays, essay 1 and essay 2. One was written by a student and one was written by AI. And then we had a discussion, and that's what you're going to see in the video. It's a 4-minute discussion.
Let's take a look.
Make sure you hit the share sound. So you had the 2 essays, right?
Did everyone hear that okay?
Read?
Yes.
On the same topic, right? Essay 1 and essay 2. Which one do you think was written by a human?
Essay 1.
Am I not hearing the same number?
Essay 2 was by a human, and essay 1 was by ChatGPT or artificial.
I think, Professor, essay 1 was from the AI, and the second one was written by humans.
I said the same thing.
Okay.
No, you said the opposite thing.
No, I said essay 1 is by AI and 2 is by human.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
Professor,
so-
can I say the reason behind that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't say anything in the class because I didn't have your screen. So the reason behind is that, who is laughing? Okay, the reason behind that is like in the first essay, there is no personal experiences, and they used a lot of good vocabulary that is not very familiar to us. And in the second one, it's very common language. It has very common language, and also have personal experiences that can be only a human thing, not a robotic or something else.
Good. And which essay do you think a professor would prefer?
I think human one because it's nice one.
So was it easy for you to figure it out? Which was which?
I just figured out when I read the first paragraph.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, easily.
Okay, so what do you think about, so I want to ask you this. The reason why we're doing this is because if you do the AI one, do you not think that I would know? I mean, you all knew right away which was which, right? Do you think I don't know right away which is which?
It's
Well,
really
obviously
simple.
that you will know that which is which, but you know that the human thing when we do like an assignment. So we always don't use all the topics using by AI or ChatGPT. Yes, we do use, all of us use, but we get the idea, and from that idea, we paraphrase it with our own words. Yes,
Professor, you found the first cheater. Just check the marks.
Yeah, no, I want to have this discussion because I want to teach you how to write. And I don't want you to just cut and paste ChatGPT into your essay and say, this is it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to accuse anybody of doing that either. So that's why we're having this discussion. And I appreciate your points and I agree with them. Yes, you can use it for some things, but you need to paraphrase it and you need to tell me, I use ChatGPT or I use Grammarly Premium. You just need to tell me. And you need to use as much paraphrasing as possible and input your own experience and your voice. What's really missing in that essay is voice.
Sorry, Professor, are you recommending us that we should use AI?
AI is the future.
Really?
So if you know how to use it appropriately, I see no problem with you using it, but I want you to use it appropriately. That means you cannot, if you cut and paste, I'm telling you right now, it's not appropriate and I'm going to know. And I'm going to not be happy. But if you read what you get from AI and you pull out, oh, this sentence works really well here. So I'm going to use this sentence and then you're going to say ChatGPT or Grammarly Premium. You're going to tell me you used it, okay?
Okay.
So the essays are in the link that David put in the whole presentation is in the link. And maybe we need Bentley to put the link back in there for the people who came in later.
Yeah,
So-
I'll repost.
Yeah. So
Okay.
So essay 1 and essay 2, those were the 2 essays, and I welcome you to use those essays with your students and do the same activity because it's really valuable for the students to kind of see how easy it is to see the difference between the 2 essays. We have 3 questions here. If you want to answer in the chat, how successfully do the students distinguish AI and human output? That's question number 1. If anybody would like to answer in the chat pod. Because essay 1 was the AI and essay 2 was the human one. The second question is, what aspects of the writing samples help them decide? And then 3, do the students believe that the AI output is superior? Right, they answered it really quickly, Tally, I agree. In fact, they didn't need the 15 minutes that I thought I was going to give them.
Ava, we have a question from Ava here. Does the original essay prompt appear in those files there?
The original prompt, no, because I told my students that we should know what the prompt is based on the essay, so I asked them not to write the prompt. So you won't see the prompt. But if you write a good essay, you don't need the prompt. You should have answered the prompt in your essay.
We have some good stuff coming in the chat here. Sharon notes that the personal details examples or lack thereof in the AI one. Then they mentioned the word delve, more on that word later.
And that's because the students, they find a word they like and they're going to use it more than once.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I really like that they notice about the word choice because that wasn't something I was expecting them to pick out, but yes, they did pick that out. So this is a really good activity if you want to use with your writing classes, because I think it really gets the point across to them.
Absolutely. And this kind of brings us to our next point here, just in terms of kind of activities with students. And on the subject of essay prompts, we'll get into our rationale for this later, but we figure we'd lead with some examples before we get into the more theoretical stuff here. Another thing we can start thinking about with AI is just how to look at prompts. All right. and what might be a good prompt or a bad prompt in terms of what kind of output it produces. So here's what I might call maybe not a very good prompt to share with our students based on what AI can produce. Here, you take something like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is a novel that's been widely discussed and written about. You ask ChatGPT or another AI platform to produce writing on it, and it does a pretty good job with it. In about 15 seconds, you get, some interesting observations about the novel's themes, some kind of creative interpretation here. But, note what happens here. All right. Here's a prompt based on a source that AI does not have access to, and it fails to generate anything in response to it. This is something that I found on C-SPAN, and I have a PDF of from long ago. All right, but other examples of this. All right, ask it to explain a theory, a published theory. It does a great job. All right. But watch what happens when you ask AI to analyze something that it doesn't have access to, like this is a classroom I taught in this spring. You get this sort of hilarious kind of commentary that, you just wouldn't expect a normal human to produce, right? I mean, how about this one? I like this one that, Wheeler 100 has distinct boundaries that separate it from other spaces within the building. What an astute observation, right? You just can't imagine a student who's actually in that room with you, kind of saying something like that, right? Other examples of this, write a personal narrative about a historical figure of your choosing. It does a great job of that. Here it's chosen Ada Lovelace, and it's got quite a few facts to share. Write a personal narrative about your first day in this ESL class. It has to make stuff up, all right? And, if you take a look at this, well, the teacher introduced herself and outlined the goals and expectations for the course. We engaged in a variety of activities. I mean, if you look at all this, it sounds like kind of a busy first day. My goodness, And who's to say that the teacher is female identifying, for example? This is where students really need to provide the content, and AI can't do it for them. All right. One last example of this, identify the 4 major learning styles. It does a good job of that. Which learning style does your classroom partner have? It can't do that. All right. This kind of, gets us into this next point that if we understand what AI does well and doesn't do well, we can learn how to use it effectively. We can effectively integrate it. In other words, we know that it does a good job with language, and we're in the language business, right? And that's part of the reason we're so concerned about this. But we do kind of see, little things like Bentley just mentioned Delve. This is just kind of a funny one here. I mean, let me see if I can't share this. Sorry, I've got too many windows open here, but let me move my screen up here. I was at a party with some teachers just the other day, and one of them made a cake, which I will show you with that expression on it there, delve into. So there are these language features, but we also, beyond language, which is generally pretty consistent in tone and polished and accurate, we notice that it does better with certain organizational structures than others. It excels at summary, for instance. If you ask it to synthesize rather than blending sources together, it just tends to summarize the sources in a list. All right. It struggles to produce narrative structure with things like a turning point sometimes, or rising tension, rising action, in contrast to something like a book review, which it does quite well. But the key point, and if there's one thing we take away from this, is that what AI struggles with, for the moment at least, is content. We see this in different ways, that superficial analysis, sort of the lack of details that Susan's students notice, for instance. And this also manifests in other forms where if you prompt it, well, give me sources and citations or quotes, it will make those things up often. And this has been termed hallucinated evidence. Susan, I think later will comment on some of her concerns around that term. But if we are aware of these sort of strengths and weaknesses of AI, we can inform our pedagogy. So, what do? You base assignments on source material that AI doesn't have access to. And we saw some examples of this in the prompts earlier, right? You make content a feature of assignments. Yes, students are working on their language skills, but content is key to whatever they're doing. All right. Ask them to give concrete examples, data, quotations, descriptive details, things that AI tends to struggle with. All right. And then this can help students, also practice paraphrasing skills and citation, as Susan noted earlier. But, if you want to know how good your prompt is, you just have to test it. You have to put it into AI. And later, we will give you the opportunity to test out some of your prompts in a breakout room. In this sense, though, there's really nothing new about AI. There's research that for a long time, when you give students that sort of one flew over the cuckoo's nest type summary response essay, a lot of them, instead of reading the book, will just read 3 or 4 study guides and just cobble together some analysis from them. That's what AI is doing as well. It's just cobbling together Rami's existing kind of commentary on it. So in that sense, nothing's really changed, right? But just as, you know, we saw with students, Susan's students, when they start kind of looking at AI versus human output, if you show them this, they start to notice a lot of things. And you can really kind of get granular with this. If you like, here's a sample lesson that I used with my first year writing students this semester, where we looked at particular skills that we were looking at in class. We've been talking about summary and synthesis, quotation and paraphrase. These are things that you might be working on with your students as well. And then, you know, we looked at human and versus AI samples, and the students kind of commented on how well, you know, each, well, I don't know if writer is the appropriate term here, but how well each handled these various kind of skills. It helps them.
Can I break in for a second?
Absolutely, please do.
People are asking for, they are interested in some lower level materials. And I just want to say that now that we have AI, it's very easy to take the activities we're sharing with you and make them at any level that you want. And so for the writing activity, you don't have to do a 250-word essay. You could do a paragraph and do the same activity at a lower level for lower level students and see what your students would respond to. Just wanted to put that out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan, for bringing that up. And thank you to those who brought that up in chat. Another great thing AI can do for you. You take that sort of 10th grade level college type reading, and you ask it to simplify it at the level of your students, 4th grade readers, whatever they may be. More on other uses for us as well. I mean, AI can really be a supporting tool, right? It's a good way to gather sources. If you ask it, who are the experts on this topic? What are some recent, like publications I can review on my topic? It actually does a pretty good job of generating content for you or your students. You can get ideas for organizational frameworks. You can see how it approaches an assignment. For instance, if you're trying to map a theory onto an object, it might delineate some of those kind of connections. They can give, a way for students, they have to supply the content, whether that's their partner's learning style or, their experiences in the first day of class or the makeup of their classroom physical space. But they can still get a sense of how to go about organizing their content. Well, some other uses here. Susan, do you want to comment on some of these language functions?
So I want to say that, the step-by-step instructions, I am so happy that my students no longer have to have that white piece of paper. When you ask students to write and they don't have any idea about what to write, AI is a great brainstorm generator, giving students ideas and questions with which to think about a topic. So that's another thing that I really love about AI. So step-by-step instructions, if you're asking students to break down a process, they can do that very easily. And Margi has a couple of grammar logs in there. And David, do you remember how she said she did those grammar logs? She has them analyzed, correct, from the AI?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can take something that, for instance, might have an error in usage, and then when you feed this into AI, you get a correction. But you draw students' attention to the correction to notice the differences. And then, for instance, they start noticing syntactic or semantic differences, right? So, for instance, the student in this case was able to recognize a phrasing that we use with the verb depict. You depict X as Y, as opposed to depict something to be something, the original utterance. If you'd like to see more examples of these logs from Margi, we've included some in this link here. Let's see, Dolores asks, the links are not in the chat. Okay, absolutely. Bentley, if you have a moment, would you be so kind as to repost the presentation file?
Absolutely.
All righty. Yeah, Dolores, when you have a moment, please just if you download this file, you'll have access to all the links. Okay, Merv, thank you. All righty. Excellent. Let's see. Here's another language activity, Susan.
Yeah, so this is a vocabulary log. So I switched my class from teaching essays to teaching reading responses and doing free writes, where the students wrote during class, and then they would read something. They would work in a group to analyze and understand the reading in groups, and then they would come back and they would pick words that they were new for them. And I had them copy the sample, and this teaches a few different types of things. First, they have to copy the sentence from the reading that they found the word, and they have to cite the reading correctly. The next thing they do is they go to ChatGPT, or a lot of my students use Grammarly Premium, and they have to get a sentence from AI, and they put that in there, and they have to cite the sentence again. And the reason this is double duty is because the students don't understand how to cite when they copy something. So this just reinforces that. Then they write an original sentence, a part of speech, and a definition. And then when we did writing, free writing, and then reading, free writing, reading, free writing. And then we had them pick one of their free writes to write an essay. And they had to use words from their vocabulary log in their essay, as well as personal experience. And I found that my students, and I know that they didn't use AI because I had a lot of work in grading because there were so many mistakes, but they really, really did try to do all these things that I asked them to do. And I think it was helpful. So that is one way you can work with vocabulary words from texts and readings and free writes. My students love the free writes.
And building on this idea of AI as a tool, you can see how it can be a tool at every stage of the process, from gathering your content to structuring arguments or essays or whatever it is, to polishing the language. But it's also, I know a lot of us are interested in the writing context, but it's a useful kind of in other ways too here. But the other bit of advice that I'd like to share, because some of us, of course, have these concerns about detection, right? For instance, there's a good comment in chat that Amanda brings up. Okay, what AI will keep getting better and better and better, right? So the other thing that we need to be mindful of is to engage students throughout their process. Yes, they can use AI as a tool throughout the process, but we also need to be engaged as they go through that process. One of the bits of advice that a colleague shared with me, which has been, I think, the most important advice I've gotten about AI, and I share this all with you too, is to create shared writing folders that you can create sort of one folder for, we'll walk you through these steps later if you're interested in a breakout room. You can create one sort of folder for each class that you're teaching. Within that folder, for each student enrolled, they get their own folder that you share with them. And then you just tell them everything you do for this class, you create it in that folder, whether it's some notes you're taking, whether it's an outline of an essay, some homework you do, whatever it is, you create it in this folder. Any document they create will be automatically shared with you. And then, this serves two purposes. First of all, you can, if you want, you can assess their work, right? If you're looking at their composition of an essay and 2 paragraphs appear out of nowhere, you just look at the version history. You can see every step they made. And okay, if in the matter of 10 seconds, 2 blocks of text appeared, that's a red flag, all right? And then you can engage the student. You go, well, I noticed this. What happened here? And every now and then you will get a student who will say, well, actually, look, I was just using it to get ideas and things like that. And then you can later see, did they do anything with that content? But you will also get valuable insights into your students' process. This originally for me was just sort of a safeguard thing, but then I suddenly realized, I'm like, this is helping me understand if students are outlining, what kind of notes they're taking. It helped me give them better feedback on their work. There's, shared folders is one way to do this. Margi prefers Padlet, where students have a Padlet site, and then as every little building block that they create, they just sort of post, whether it's responding to class discussions, whether it's, brainstorms and things like that. This screenshot is hard to see in detail. So if you look at the link here, you can review this actual Padlet in its entirety here. But I don't know, more on free writing, Susan, you care to elaborate on this next point?
Yeah, so free writing does a few things for you. It teaches you what your students' writing style is, and it gets you to know what your students' writing is. And it's also creative and free for the I really recommend, if you're teaching writing, to start every single class with free writing, and then to read the students' free writing and comment on it for them. And instead of having a lot of structured class, spend more time in your writing class one-on-one with your students to help them with the writing process. So I found that I did this pilot. You know, American University of Afghanistan is a very conservative school with very conservative professors. And the fact that they let me do this pilot and totally deviate from the normal curriculum was fantastic. And I think I got the students to write better with their free writes.
Absolutely. And as you know, Susan, as you pointed out, if you have those, that gives you evidence of students' voice, and it's easy to compare that. You know, looping back to that very first thing we showed you, it's very easy to tell, you know, students' voice from an AI generated output in most cases, right? But this, of course, this doesn't just have to be about writing essays. There's all, you know, you can do a lot of fun creative activities. There's another one you can go try out next week in class. One that Susan came up with. I love this one. Susan, you want to tell us about this one?
Yeah, so this was to teach descriptive writing, and it doesn't, of course, you can't really do sensory details with a photo, but the students would see a photo, and you can make the photo as complicated or as simple as you want. They take a photo and they have to try and generate using Padlet. I don't know if you know that Padlet has a I can't draw feature, and that is using AI. I find that these, even though there's a lot of AI picture generators out there, Padlet is very simple, easy to use for the students, and it produces really good images. So what the students have to do is try to get an image as close as possible to the image that I gave them. And there's a lesson plan that you can use from OTAN that will help work you through this process on this lesson. It was a lot of fun. And you could see all kinds of images. Some of the students didn't figure to try and give the breed of the dog. So all kinds of funny dogs showed up. It was just a really great creative exercise. Good for lower level students as well.
This is one I can't wait to try, Susan, and thank you. I did not know about Padlet's I can't draw feature until you shared that with me either. And here is here's another cool activity. We'll play you a sample in a moment, but let's hear about it first from Susan.
So another thing that you can use with AI is to describe music and teach students about music and genres of music and have them write after this activity that I had my students do, which I'll explain in a minute. I had them write a reflective paper on the process. So there's an app called Suno, and it will take any text that you give it and put it into a song. So I took the blurb from this workshop that David and I are doing, and this was the song that I generated from Suno very simply. Go ahead and click on the link, David, so they can hear the song.
Absolutely. Let's do that. All right. All right. Here it is, everybody. This is based on this conference blurb.
It's not sounding very good. David, David,
Yep.
you need to do the sound thing again.
Sound issues?
Yeah, you need to go back and share it through with the sound on.
That's unfortunate. I thought we had that figured out. Folks, I might just invite you to check out this song a little bit later on your own here, so you don't have to see me mess with my sound settings right now. But it's a fun one. Let's see. I'm looking here at chat, and indeed, as Susan's noted, we'll walk you through any of these activities you're interested in later on in breakout rooms here. Let's see. I think another activity though that we can involve our students in, that's another generative language activity, is dialogues about ethical use, right? Here's sort of one process that I've seen colleagues follow to good effect. You can always start with a syllabus statement. Makes sense to have one. If you would like, we've shared some examples with you through this link. But make this a dialogue. Ask students to share their experiences with AI. It's the strengths they perceive it to have, limitations, its applications, and share your own, right? You might have some ideas from this presentation that can inform you in such a discussion. At that point, think about collaborative activities where you can craft policies around AI use. Maybe that original syllabus statement becomes modified, or maybe the students in one class write the syllabus statement for the next class. Or you can even do this for particular assignments. As we've seen, different assignments, AI can integrate into different assignments in different ways. Maybe, this is a component of every assignment that you do, is having some sort of policy around it. So, we're at a bit of a summative point here. As you can see, we recommend integrating AI rather than banning it. this, we can't fix every problem with AI in this way, but I don't know. Susan, would you agree that this is better than trying to fight a war against it?
Well, you can't fight the war because it's here and it's not going away. So the sooner we learn to work with AI in a positive way that helps students learn, the better. And the new jobs, I remember not too long ago where everybody was teaching coding to students because they wanted students to get jobs in software engineering. But now you don't need to code because AI can do all that for you. So what else can they do is they can learn how to use AI in a creative manner that makes all of their output better. And that's where I think we as teachers come in. Teaching. And I want to say, I have learned from this pilot program that like even something like spell check requires cognitive thinking. And students who don't do and have no skill about how to choose the right word or, even the grammar check, sometimes those grammar checks don't work right, but students don't know this. And so just teaching them how to be more cognitively aware of when they use AI will help you and your students write better and be better.
Susan, I think it's interesting that you bring up spell checks because there's actually, that's another tool that when it was released, a lot of composition instructors thought, well, here, this is the end of how am I supposed to do my weekly spelling tests anymore? Now the students aren't going to know how to spell. But data shows that students' command of spelling has actually improved since the advent of spell check. So, again, AI is a very different creature here, but we do think there's a way it can function as a useful tool in this sense. Also, for us instructors, right? Another fun fact, these same surveys that look at how much students are using AI, and they ask teachers the same questions, and teachers are apparently using it more. I know a few of us may have no experience with it, but a lot of us do, and we're using it for cool stuff. Well, for instance, we mentioned this earlier, simplify a reading. Back in my publishing days, I can't tell you how many hours I've spent trying to take some interesting article I found in The Economist or whatever that's written at a 16th grade level and try to simplify it to like a 6th grade level so my intermediate students can process it. Hours and hours and hours. AI can do this in a matter of seconds for you. And
can I share my story about my students?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I had a group of students, and this was before AI. I was using Newsela. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Newsela. It used to be a free program that changed reading levels for you. And I gave them the same reading at 5 different reading levels. And I told them which reading I thought they should do. Every single student started from the lowest level, and they reread each article 5 times. And I said, why did you do that? You're reading the same thing 5 times. And they told me they learned. So if they read it the first time in the very simple version, they got the idea of what it was about. And then they could learn vocabulary and more complex sentence structure by reading all 5 levels. So this can be done now. We don't need Newsela anymore. We can do it by ourselves by just taking a reading and asking ChatGPT to lower the reading level. And you could have 5 to 6 different level readers for your students instantly.
Absolutely. Students can of course do this themselves as well. All right. Another bit of a time suck for instructors, making lesson plans. AI can help you with that. I mean, nothing can replace, your classroom experience and human creativity, but we've seen that AI does certain things well, for instance, sequencing. Supporting activities, be it a quiz or a gloss of a reading or a vocabulary exercise. You can ask AI to generate these things for you, and it tends to do a fairly good job of it. And going back to this detection idea, if you're really stuck, let's say a student submits a piece of work and you're like, I can't prove it. I can't prove that it's AI, but I just feel like this isn't the student's work. Well, you know what you do? You ask AI to create a quiz based on the essay, and then you have the student take the quiz. If they didn't write it, they won't be able to pass if you wrote the essay, the quiz will be easy for you. If you didn't, you're going to struggle. You won't have command of the vocabulary and the content. Again, we hope that really we want to stress the idea of kind of open, honest dialogue with students, collaborative dialogue, and not sort of battling and fighting and detecting and you know, and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's another example of how AI can be a tool for us here. Of course, we have concerns, right? We're not trying to turn a blind eye to those. We recognize, as several of you pointed this out in chat, it's going to get more and more human. You know, it's going to get, it will get better with content. It certainly will. Maybe, you know, it'll stop generating phony quotes and citations. These are all legitimate concerns. And, you know, AI language tutors will be a thing. Will students be able, you know, still want to come to class if they can get a language lesson in their living room? We'll have to see. And then there's kind of other issues too. I mean, I don't know. This is where Margie would normally kind of come in and speak here. But Susan, are these issues that you'd be able to elaborate on here?
Yeah, well, I can talk about the fact that it's so even the word hallucination, like who decided to use the word hallucination to mean something that was inaccurate in ChatGPT? That word that was never the meaning of that word. And psychiatrists are very upset that we're using the word hallucination because in their world, a hallucination is a real thing that's a medical issue. And now we're saying it's a bad thing. And, you know, people who hallucinate because they have some sort of medical problem, it's a bad word to use. And who decided that that was going to be the word that they used in ChatGPT? I mean, who makes those decisions? And there's a lot of those in there. A lot of that kind of terminology shows up in your ChatGPT output. So it's really important that you think about who's the people in power and where is this stuff coming from.
Maybe if anything, this shows why we need to contribute and why our students need to contribute. You know, if all of AI is being pulled from, you know, I don't know, Wikipedia type things or things that have been, you know, written by, I don't know, like just people in power. I don't know. Maybe we do need a diversity of voices kind of contributing to it. You know, but really though, we're here to stress the positives, right? You know, I kind of want to point out, this has been a lot of really good chat commentary, but you know, Fatima mentions people tend to get scared at anything that's new. When computers started, predictions where they're going to make people stupid, you know, to the contrary, we've integrated them into our lives, right? And I mean, I would like to think that computers are helping us do our work right now. We're connecting, even though we're not all in the same, you know, building or something like that. And, you know, AI is just kind of another tool in that sense here. That brings us to what we hope will be, a chance for us all to really start engaging with some of these things here. We've got 5 different breakout rooms, each with its own theme. I want to thank Bentley for all the logistical work to make this happen here. We'd like you to think about something that you'd like to do and go into the appropriate room so you can be with some other like-minded people. Susan and I will be jumping in and out of rooms to help help you troubleshoot or to resolve any kind of questions or concerns you have. But here are some rooms with some accompanying instructions. Room 1, test your prompts. This is a good exercise for all of us to do. And you might be surprised. I will tell you that I had a prompt that I thought was rock solid that AI would not be able to produce good content on, and I was wrong. I kind of had to force me to rethink a unit of study I was doing. Here's some kind of guidelines for going through this. At least one of you expressed some interest in this idea of how do you create shared folders and share them with students. I had to have somebody walk me through it. We're happy to pass, pay that favor forward and kind of walk you through the steps. We've got some instructions here, but again, help, we can really kind of work together on this if it's an area of interest for you. Room 3, this is like the play space. All right, test out AI applications. There's a whole lot of stuff you could do here, but maybe ask Suno to make a song about or something like that. Try an AI art generator. Try creating a lesson plan on something that you're planning to do in class soon, or try simplifying a reading and seeing how that works here. Of course, we've tried to share what we have, but I know you have a lot of other good ideas as well. Several of you have been sharing these things in chat. I know there's good demand for that. We expect room 4 to be a popular room. But of course, there's also just the question of other concerns that you might have or your takeaways. Some of them kind of the bigger picture things that come up. We've created a space for that as well in room 5. I hope that
Let's ask the question to Bentley. What time do we have until, because we want to bring everybody back and go over the poll again and see.
We
Okay.
have about, let me just double check that. I think we're about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so 10 to 15 minutes and we're done, or 10 to 15 minutes and we bring people back from the chat?
10 to 15 minutes and we will be wrapping up.
Okay,
Actually, I'm sorry, hold on. No, I'm sorry, we have more than that. We have a half hour.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
half an hour,
Yeah,
25
half
so
hour.
let's go 15 minutes in the breakout rooms. And then come back and talk about what you learned in the breakout rooms. And I'd appreciate it if some of the CATESOL leaders here could join different rooms so that we could cover, because David and I are just two people.
Yeah, Christy also volunteered, so she'll be doing
Okay.
that as well.
Okay. So, you can go to any of those breakout rooms. Are they open? Just click on the breakout rooms and you should see them.
Yep, I'll open them in a moment. Just so everybody knows, Merv did just post the schedule again, or the document. So if you go to page 15, I believe it is, you will see what David is sharing on the screen right here. Here we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bentley.